Hi everyone. Today is time for deep dive into food preservatives. This is part 2 of our 3-part series into 3 key chemical ingredients that go into packaged food today. Preservatives are virtually everywhere. Biscuits, juices, milkshakes, ready to eat vegetables, parathas, yogurts, anything you can think of. So it is important for us to understand how these preservatives work, what is the potential harmful effect of these preservatives on our health backed by research, and finally some key practical aspects that we should keep in mind so that we can make better food choices. Preservatives are antimicrobial chemicals whose job is to stop the growth of microorganisms like bacteria, yeast, mold, so that the shelf life of packaged food increases, which allows them to be shipped all across the globe. Now, the problem is that this mechanism does not stop when these preservatives enter our body. You will be amazed to know that human gut is home to 100 trillion bacteria, and they are the backbone of our daily functioning. From food absorption to nutrients to building our immunity, these bacteria play a critical role in our health. But the problem is that when these preservatives enter our body, they do not distinguish between good and bad bacteria. They harm good bacteria in our body also, which disrupts our digestive system. In fact, research has shown that some preservatives such as sodium benzoate, sodium nitrate, potassium sorbate, etc. end up harming good bacteria more, whereas the bad bacteria at times are more resilient, which then changes the balance of good versus bad bacteria in our body, leading to inflammation and more issues. Let's look at some credible research on the harmful effects of preservatives on human body. First, start with kids. There was a study published in Lancet where 300 healthy children from general population were given a preservative named sodium benzoate along with food colors as part of their diet, and it was observed that there was a measurable increase in the hyperactive behavior of these kids over a period of time. And it was so clear that the UK Food Regulatory Authority issued a warning to be put on products using these preservatives. Let's move to adults. There was a study in France which tracked diets of 1 lakh people over 7 years, and they measured that people who were consuming preservatives such as potassium sorbate, sodium benzoate, sulfites showed a meaningful higher risk of association with cancer, various types of cancer including prostate cancer, etc. The study further went on to establish a correlation between higher use of these preservatives in diet to other health disorders such as diabetes, cardiovascular challenges, and so on. Let's also see an India-specific data point. An FSSAI report showed that random sampling found up to 20% of products with preservative residue higher than regulatory allowed limits. And regulatory allowed limits are also in question. Some of the commonly used preservatives in India such as BHA, BHT, they have been allowed globally as well, but increasingly coming under scrutiny. Japan has restricted their usage. Europe has introduced tighter regulation on them. And USA has also just started a closer study and tighter regulation of these preservatives. I'm sure Indian regulations will get there also, but the problem here is not just India versus global. The problem is that long-term impact of these preservatives is not well understood or recognized globally, simply because studies impacting or isolating their impact have been far and few. Let us create a simple framework to classify pesticides into 2 buckets. Ones which have a relatively clean research track record, and the other ones where research is increasingly finding evidence of their potential harm to human gut. In the first bucket, we have very few entries. There is ascorbic acid, vitamin C, vitamin E related preservatives, and citric acid. I have listed down the 3 code names with which these preservatives are mentioned on the packets. On the other side, is the bucket which has all the chemical preservatives which have been proven to be harmful on the human body, such as sodium benzoate, sodium nitrite, potassium sorbate, sulfites. These are all harmful to varying degrees. So we need to check if the food contains any of these three preservatives: ascorbic acid, which is E300, or 306, which is vitamin E related, or 330, which is citric acid. Now, the problem is that the combination of varying preservatives can be far more toxic than the individual ones. So, a relatively safer preservative, ascorbic acid, when mixed with sodium benzoate, has been found to create an element named benzene, which is a well-proven carcinogenic, meaning a cancer-causing element. So the point is that safety of individual preservative is not enough. Their chemical reaction with other chemicals in the food product also needs to be seen to find the actual impact on our health. Preservatives today are so ubiquitous that we can find them in virtually all food categories in our supermarket shelves. Here is a simple table which I have created to highlight which preservatives are generally present in which category. And a simple thumb rule is that the more mass market and cheaper a product is, it is more likely to have used a synthetic or chemical preservative to control cost as well as to increase shelf life beyond what it would with a natural preservative. And this is not limited only to packaged ready-to-eat products. Even groceries, in certain instances, things we use daily in our homes, have these preservatives, and that's where the risk compounds, because the frequency of consumption is much higher than a ready biscuit or a chocolate or a juice, and we often tend to assume that the grocery we are buying is generally immune from these things, but it may not be the case with all products. So vigilance is the only solution. Understanding preservatives is not difficult. Their function is simple: stop microbial growth. They do it in packed food, so they do the same in our stomach also, but the problem is they end up killing good bacteria. And there is enough research to show that many of these preservatives have harmful effects, starting from hyperactivity all the way up to cancer. And they are so prevalent that it is not easy to eliminate them, but it is essential to check that the products we are buying are using at least more safer alternatives. It is not easy to remember these code words. I also struggle sometimes. The simple thing I do is to just click a picture of the ingredients and put it on Google or any of the AI tools that you are using, and it will very quickly tell you which are the problem ingredients. So as in all of my videos, my request is that let's be a bit more mindful in what we are purchasing. These things are hidden disruptions to our health, and it is critical that we control their consumption for our long-term health.